Logan always knew something was off. The fake smiles, the late-night calls, the flimsy excuses. He could feel the cracks forming beneath the surface. But one name shattered everything. Chris. Who was he? And why was Amber, his wife, so willing to walk away for him? Rage, betrayal. A storm of emotions raged inside him. But Logan wasn't the kind of man to crumble. He had a plan. When Amber walked out that door, she thought she was gaining freedom. What she didn't realize was she was about to lose everything. Because love is war, and Logan, he was ready to win. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. Philip slumped into the couch, aimlessly flipping through channels without registering what was on the screen. A storm of suspicion churned in his mind. Something wasn't right. Emma, his wife, had been growing more distant, her excuses for late nights becoming increasingly flimsy. A nagging unease gripped his chest, warning him that she was hiding something. The sound of her footsteps in the hallway yanked him from his thoughts. He tensed, preparing himself. Emma stepped into the living room, a brightness in her expression that felt forced. Philip's eyes locked onto her, his gaze sharp, dissecting every detail. "Going somewhere?" he asked, keeping his voice as even as he could manage. Emma's smile was breezy, her tone too casual. "Robert is outside. Come on, let me introduce you." Philip's blood ran hot in an instant. His hands curled into fists, his restraint barely holding back the fury surging through him. "Robert? And just who the hell is Robert?" His voice carried a hard edge. Emma's expression remained neutral, but her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, hesitation, or perhaps both. "Just a friend," she answered with a dismissive shrug, though the words rang hollow. Philip pushed himself off the couch, his frame towering over her. If he so much as sets foot on this property, he'll regret it. And if you walk out that door with him, don't bother coming back. You'll pay for it in ways you can't begin to imagine. His voice was low, seething with barely contained rage. For a fleeting moment, Emma's composure wavered, her eyes widening. But she quickly straightened, her posture stiff with defiance. "I'm leaving, Philip. You don't own me, and I refuse to let some washed-up loser dictate my life," she shot back, her words like ice. Philip's heart thundered as he watched her turn away. He wanted to stop her, to say something, anything that might make her stay. But pride held him in place. The door slammed shut behind her, the sound cutting through him like a blade. Fury and betrayal crashed over him as he stalked toward the window. Outside, a sleek black car idled by the curb. A tall man leaned against it, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. "Robert," Philip glared, fists still clenched at his sides. A part of him burned to storm out there and put an end to this charade, but he knew it would change nothing. Drawing in a slow breath, he stepped away from the window, swallowing his rage. Emma, on the other hand, felt exhilaration coursing through her as she walked toward Robert's car. The glossy black exterior gleamed beneath the streetlights, a stark contrast to the stifling routine she had just abandoned. The thrill of stepping into the unknown overpowered any lingering doubts. Robert smirked as he opened the car door. "Ready for a night you won't forget?" She slid into the passenger seat without hesitation. "Let's have some fun." With a chuckle, Robert revved the engine, speeding through the city streets. Music pulsed through the speakers as Emma stole glances at him, his strong jawline, the effortless confidence in the way he handled the wheel. The weight of home, of Philip, felt like a distant memory. They arrived at an upscale hotel where Robert tossed the keys to the valet before guiding her inside. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as they stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut, and Robert pulled her closer, his hands resting on her waist. Her breath caught as the elevator ascended. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins, drowning out the nagging voice of reason. When they reached their suite, Robert swiped the keycard, revealing a space draped in luxury, lavish furniture, a sprawling city view, and a king-sized bed anchoring the room. He poured them each a glass of champagne. They clinked glasses, and Emma let the bubbles dance on her tongue, allowing herself to sink into the moment. The thought of Philip, of the life she was leaving behind, faded into the background. Here, with Robert, she felt untethered. The night blurred into a haze of passion and indulgence. Moonlight spilled through the windows, casting silver streaks over tangled sheets and entwined bodies. But as the first hints of dawn crept in, exhilaration dulled, giving way to something heavier. Emma carefully slipped out of bed, wrapping a sheet around herself as she walked to the window. Below, the city stretched out before her, indifferent to the choices she had made. Doubt curled in her chest. Had she gone too far? Back at home, Philip confronted the emptiness left in her wake, but he refused to drown in it. Moving with precision, he gathered Emma's belongings, clothes, shoes, books, packing them neatly into boxes labeled with her name. One by one, he stacked them in the garage. Then, he changed the locks, blocked her number, methodically erased her from his life. The betrayal stung, raw and unrelenting, but he wouldn't let it consume him. He had more important things to focus on. For days, he buried himself in his office, planning his next move. Revenge wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a strategy demanding careful execution. He picked up a notepad and started listing steps. At the top, call Christopher. Without hesitation, he reached for his phone. When his lawyer picked up, Philip didn't waste time. We need to talk. Now. The next morning, he sat across from Christopher, a thick file of documents between them. Tell me everything, Christopher said, his expression unreadable. Philip leaned in, his voice steady as he laid out the past few weeks. He left nothing unsaid. Emma's late nights, her lies, her choice to leave with Robert. He had lost his wife, but he refused to lose the war. Christopher listened attentively, taking careful notes and interjecting with the occasional question. Once Philip had finished speaking, Christopher leaned back, processing the weight of the situation. She shouldn't get a dime, Philip said with unwavering conviction. Christopher nodded, fully comprehending Philip's determination. We can gather evidence of her disloyalty, he suggested. That'll reinforce your case and ensure she faces the consequences. Philip exhaled sharply, his confidence unshaken. I've already set up surveillance in the house. Everything is documented. Christopher leaned forward, his expression serious. That's good. We need undeniable proof, photos, videos, records of her encounters with Robert, financial statements as well. If she's been spending money on him, we'll use that to our advantage. A grim sense of satisfaction settled over Philip. The more evidence he collected, the more certain he became. This wasn't just about him. It was about making sure Emma answered for her betrayal. A week later, Emma pulled into the driveway, returning home after another rendezvous with her lover. She was certain she could smooth things over, confident that a few words would set things right. Approaching the front door, she expected to find Philip waiting inside. Instead, she was met with locked doors and an unsettling silence. Frustrated, she knocked firmly. Philip, open the door. Through the window, Philip appeared, his expression unreadable. He stood calm and composed, revealing nothing. You made your choice, Emma. Now live with it. Her breath hitched. Please, Philip. It was a mistake. Let me explain. He shook his head, his voice devoid of emotion. There's nothing left to say. You lost everything. Panic replaced her frustration. She grabbed the door handle and rattled it forcefully. Philip, please, just let me in so we can talk. Without another word, he turned and disappeared from view. A sick feeling settled in her stomach. She rushed around the house, searching for another way inside. Every entry was locked, every window secured. Desperation rising, she pounded on the back door until her knuckles throbbed. "Philip, don't do this." Inside, Philip observed her through the security monitors. He watched her growing desperation with silent satisfaction, his face betraying no emotion. Turning away, he walked into his study and closed the door. There was no room for her in his life anymore. Emma circled the house again, searching for any weakness, any chance to get inside. Finding none, she slumped onto the front steps, leaning against the door. She pulled out her phone and called Philip, only to hear an automated message. Her number was blocked. Text after text went unanswered. As the hours dragged on, the weight of her actions pressed down on her. She reached out to her friends, but word of her betrayal had already spread. No one wanted to help, not even Robert. She was completely alone. The truth settled in. She had nowhere left to go. She drove aimlessly through the city, debating whether to go to Robert. But their last conversation had been cold. He had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with her, now that she no longer had a home to offer. The realization hit her like a gut punch. She had sacrificed everything for nothing. That evening, she returned to the house, hoping Philip had calmed down. She stood in the driveway, staring at the darkened windows before knocking again. No answer. Just as she turned to leave, she noticed a note taped to the door. The message was brief and final. "Emma, your things are in the garage. Take them and go. My lawyer will be in touch regarding the divorce. See you in court." Her hands trembled as she made her way to the garage. Inside, she found her belongings neatly packed in boxes. Clothes, shoes, personal items, her entire life reduced to a few cartons, waiting to be taken away. The finality of it all crushed her. Tears blurred her vision as she loaded the boxes into her car. She checked into a nearby motel, carrying her possessions into the small, sterile room. Sitting on the bed, surrounded by what little she had left, she stared at the walls, the weight of her choices suffocating her. The next morning, she called her lawyer, desperate for guidance. He listened patiently before delivering the harsh truth. Philip had built an airtight case. The evidence against her was overwhelming. She had no grounds to contest the divorce, no leverage for a financial settlement. As she ended the call, a hollow numbness settled over her. She had nothing, no home, no money, no future. Days passed in a blur as she moved from one motel to another, searching for stability, but finding none. She reached out to old friends, only to be met with silence. Her reputation had caught up with her. No one was willing to help. A week later, Emma found herself once more outside the house she had once called home. The consequences of her choices had come full circle. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as the divorce proceedings began. Philip and Emma sat on opposite sides of the room, their lives forever divided. Philip stood alongside his attorney, Christopher, as Emma entered the courtroom, accompanied by her team of legal representatives. A heavy silence settled over the room, tension crackling in the air as both sides prepared for the battle ahead. Taking the initiative, Christopher meticulously laid out Philip's case, unveiling a series of damning evidence. He presented footage from surveillance cameras capturing Emma's secret rendezvous with Robert, financial records exposing her extravagant expenditures tied to the affair, and text messages that removed any doubt about the nature of their relationship. Each piece was projected onto massive courtroom screens, ensuring that every detail was laid bare for scrutiny. The first blow came in the form of video evidence. The courtroom remained eerily silent as the footage played, depicting Emma sneaking out at night and meeting Robert at various locations. The recordings, clear and time-stamped, provided undeniable proof of her infidelity, reinforced by GPS data that left no room for misinterpretation. The judge, a composed and perceptive figure, watched intently, his expression unreadable. Christopher addressed the bench with unwavering confidence. "These recordings present an indisputable truth," he declared. "They leave no room for doubt. Emma has broken the trust in this marriage through an extensive and deliberate affair." Emma's attorney attempted to counter, arguing that the evidence was selectively chosen to paint an unfair picture. However, their objections faltered in the face of the meticulously compiled documentation. The judge listened but remained unmoved, his focus fixed on the concrete facts before him. Christopher pressed on, shifting to the financial records. He carefully dissected Emma's spending, highlighting indulgent purchases, luxurious dinners, expensive hotel stays, and extravagant gifts, all funded by shared marital assets. The court examined the bank statements and credit card transactions, each one a stark contradiction to Emma's previous claims. The figures spoke louder than any argument, painting a damning picture of betrayal and financial misconduct. Emma was summoned to the stand in a desperate attempt to salvage her case. She admitted to the affair, describing it as a mistake and pleading for understanding. She insisted on her willingness to make amends, but her words carried little weight against the mountain of evidence stacked against her. The judge's demeanor remained impassive, his attention solely on the irrefutable proof before him. Christopher seized the moment, launching into a cross-examination that dismantled Emma's defense piece by piece. He zeroed in on the timeline of her meetings with Robert and the financial transactions linked to their affair. Each question was a strategic move, unraveling Emma's claims and exposing the full extent of her deception. As the trial pressed on, the judge remained firm, guided by the undeniable facts presented. The case that Philip and Christopher had methodically built left no gaps for Emma's legal team to exploit. Despite their best efforts, they failed to shake the foundation of the argument against her. After several intense days of hearings, the judge rendered his verdict. He ruled that Emma had breached the marriage contract, forfeiting any entitlement to financial compensation. Philip's perseverance, combined with the weight of the evidence, had secured a decisive victory. Emma's attorneys murmured about possible appeals, but the reality was clear. Her case had collapsed under the weight of undeniable proof. Stripped of any leverage, she faced the consequences of her actions with no recourse. The ruling was final, and its impact was irreversible. For Philip, the decision was a long-awaited relief. The battle had been grueling, but the outcome validated his pursuit of justice. Though the process had been exhausting, it was a necessary fight to reclaim his independence. As the courtroom emptied, he and Christopher reviewed the final steps to formalize the divorce. For the first time in a long while, Philip felt a sense of closure, an opportunity to move forward unburdened by the past. Emma, on the other hand, stepped out of the courthouse into an uncertain future. The legal battle had stripped her of the stability she once took for granted. She now had to face the full weight of the ruling and its repercussions. The life she had known was gone, replaced by the cold reality of her choices. With the case behind him, Philip embraced the opportunity for a fresh start. He relocated, choosing a new home far removed from painful memories. His modern, airy house became a sanctuary, filled with natural light and designed to reflect his aspirations. Every detail, from the furniture to the decor, was carefully curated to create a space that was entirely his own. His weekends were spent immersed in home projects, painting walls, arranging books and artwork, and bringing his vision to life. Rediscovering his passions, Philip devoted himself to woodworking, a craft he had always cherished. He transformed his garage into a workshop, where he spent hours refining his skills, creating and rebuilding, not just furniture, but himself. Meanwhile, Emma's world continued to unravel. The excitement of her affair with Robert had long since faded, and now she faced the harsh reality of its consequences. Robert, once eager and attentive, had no intention of maintaining their relationship now that the secrecy and thrill were gone. He distanced himself, leaving Emma to deal with the fallout alone. Her financial situation deteriorated rapidly. With her reputation tarnished, securing stable employment proved nearly impossible. Employers hesitated, wary of the scandal surrounding her name. As her savings dwindled and the bills piled up, desperation set in. The friends she had once counted on slowly withdrew, reluctant to be associated with the controversy. One by one, they disappeared, leaving her isolated, forced to confront the full weight of her mistakes. As she exited the courthouse, she knew that the legal proceedings were over, but her struggles were just beginning. The verdict had not only stripped her of financial support, but had left her to face the consequences of her choices alone. For Philip, however, this moment signified a turning point. The weight of betrayal no longer defined his future. With his victory secured, he looked ahead, determined to build a life not marked by deception, but by the resilience and strength that had carried him through. Emma had never expected loneliness to consume her so completely. The absence of the support system she once relied on was an unbearable reality, one she had never envisioned. Seeking some semblance of stability, she relocated to a cramped, overlooked apartment on the outskirts of the city. The space was modest at best, filled with outdated furniture and lacking any real comfort. It was a stark contrast to the life she had once enjoyed, a daily reminder of the repercussions of her choices. No matter how many times she tried to reach Philip, her calls and messages were met with silence. Every attempt at reconciliation was futile. The divorce had not only dismantled their marriage, but had also severed any remaining connection between them. Philip had made his position clear. She was no longer a part of his life. With nothing to distract her, Emma fell into a monotonous routine. Her days were spent scouring job postings, her nights stretched long and empty in the dim light of her sparsely furnished apartment. The excitement she had once sought with Robert had long since faded, replaced by the sobering weight of her new reality. What had once seemed like liberation now felt like a punishment. The gravity of her past decisions pressed down on her more heavily with each passing day. Financial instability, social isolation, and an overwhelming sense of aimlessness consumed her. She had envisioned a future with Robert, yet all that remained was the wreckage of what she had destroyed. The life she had dreamed of had been nothing more than a mirage, and now she was left with nothing but regret. Meanwhile, Philip flourished, his success a quiet but undeniable form of revenge. Free from the chaos she had once brought into his life, he embraced a new beginning, one that had no place for her. While she remained shackled to the consequences of her downfall, he moved forward, thriving in a world she could no longer touch. His growth only emphasized the stark contrast between them. He had rebuilt, while she was left to pick up the shattered remnants of her past. Emma sat motionless on the tattered couch in her tiny apartment, staring up at the dull fluorescent light flickering above. The room around her was barren, furnished only with the essentials: a narrow bed, a small table with a single chair, and a few unpacked boxes stacked in the corner. The vibrancy of her past had vanished, replaced by the dull monotony of her present. Reaching for a dust-covered picture frame on the coffee table, she wiped away the thin layer of grime to reveal a photograph of her and Philip. It was taken during a happier time, a vacation when laughter had come easily. That life felt impossibly distant now, overshadowed by the choices that had led her here. Scattered belongings told the story of her decline. The boxes held dresses and shoes she no longer had occasions for, trinkets from a past life that no longer fit in her present. Downsizing had been a necessity, a painful testament to her dwindling finances. Each item she unpacked only reinforced what she had lost: the security, the comfort, the effortless ease of the life she had once taken for granted. She tried to keep herself occupied, but the routine was stifling. Mornings began with a simple breakfast of instant coffee and cereal before she spent hours hunched over her aging laptop, filling out job applications. Despite sending countless resumes and attending multiple interviews, real opportunities remained out of reach. The competitive job market, combined with the stain of her scandal, left her struggling to find steady employment. Evenings offered little respite. She often wandered the quiet streets of her neighborhood, hoping a change of scenery would clear her thoughts, but the stillness only amplified her loneliness. The lively places she used to frequent felt worlds away, now inaccessible to her. Occasionally, She stopped by a small diner, drawn by its nostalgic charm, but even that provided no escape from the weight of her thoughts. One night, as she walked past the cafe where she had once met Robert, memories surfaced, whispers of stolen moments, of secret conversations that had once felt thrilling, but now seemed like a cruel joke played at her expense. Robert had been an escape, a fleeting rush that made her feel alive. But he had vanished just as quickly as he had arrived. She had believed in a future with him, only to realize too late that he had never been invested in her at all. His absence left a void she hadn't anticipated, a harsh reminder of how transient and meaningless their affair had been. She often found herself reliving that reckless night with Robert, the night that had unraveled everything. At the time, she had seen it as the start of something new, something exhilarating. Instead, it had set in motion the slow collapse of her entire world. While she faced the wreckage, Robert had slipped away to another country, untouched by the destruction he had helped cause. The apartment she now called home only emphasized her solitude. In a feeble attempt to make the space feel less empty, she had added small personal touches, a few photographs, cheap artwork, a couple of potted plants. But nothing could mask the harsh reality of her situation. The contrast between her past luxury and her present struggle was inescapable. No matter what she did, the hollowness remained. Nights were the worst. Alone with her thoughts, Emma found herself revisiting old conversations with Philip, the justifications she had clung to for her affair. She had once believed she deserved more, that she needed excitement. But in the deafening silence of her tiny apartment, she saw how foolish she had been. Her marriage was gone. Her financial stability had crumbled. Her social circle had all but disappeared. The weight of her mistakes was suffocating. Occasionally, she reached out to old friends, but their responses were distant, if they responded at all. She had alienated the people who had once cared for her, and they had no desire to welcome her back. Rebuilding those connections felt impossible. The isolation she now endured was not just a cruel twist of fate. It was the direct result of her own choices. Alone in the stillness, Emma was forced to face the full weight of her regrets. The future she had chased with Robert had never materialized, leaving her stranded in a reality she had never envisioned. The true cost of her actions had become painfully clear. She had not only lost Philip, but also everything that had once given her life meaning. Each passing day in that suffocating apartment served as a relentless reminder of the consequences she could never escape. She had convinced herself she was escaping a life she no longer wanted. Instead, she had run headfirst into a future filled with uncertainty and despair. And as she sat in the emptiness, burdened by the crushing reality of it all, she finally understood. She had no one to blame but herself. Several years had slipped away since the stormy conclusion of Philip's marriage. The aftermath had been a period of upheaval, yet he chose to frame it as an opportunity for transformation. Determined to rebuild, he relocated to a new home, rekindled his enthusiasm for old passions, and worked diligently to restore both his career and social life. His new home sat in a peaceful neighborhood, surrounded by flourishing greenery and beautifully maintained houses. It was during this chapter of renewal that he encountered Camilla. Camilla, a gifted graphic designer with a love for hiking, shared many of Philip's interests. What began as a casual acquaintance, rooted in mutual admiration and common pastimes, gradually evolved into something deeper. With time, Camilla's unwavering support, kindness, and ability to see and appreciate Philip for who he truly was distinguished their bond from any he had known before. As the months passed, their connection only strengthened. They found happiness in traveling together, embracing new experiences, and exploring the beauty of nature. Weekends often saw them venturing through breathtaking landscapes, trekking along scenic trails, and uncovering the charm of small, picturesque towns, each shared adventure drawing them closer. This story has come to an end. Life is a series of choices, and every choice has consequences. Infidelity may seem like an escape, but in reality, it destroys not only relationships, but also the person who betrays. Amber sacrificed trust for a fleeting thrill, never realizing that betrayal is a one-way ticket to loneliness. Logan, on the other hand, proved that even after heartbreak, one can rise, heal, and rebuild a better life. Loyalty, respect, and honesty are the foundation of love. Destroy them, and don't expect things to remain the same. In a world where every action leaves a mark, think ahead, because fixing a mistake is far harder than never making it in the first place. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.